Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we're venturing into a hidden world. A world so small it fits between grains of sand, drops of moss water, and even within the cracks of ice. It's the realm of the tardigrade, also known as the water bear. A creature so tiny you'd need a microscope to see it, and yet so resilient that it can endure conditions that would end almost any other form of life. Tardigrades have been called indestructible, unkillable, even immortal. They can dry out for decades, be frozen nearly to absolute zero, survive the crushing pressure of the deep sea, and even drift alive through the vacuum of space. For something that looks like a soft, chubby, eight-legged bear, they are among the toughest survivors Earth has ever produced. Tonight we'll share 100 fascinating facts about these strange little animals. Some will leave you in awe of their superpowers. Others will reveal their delicate biology, their ancient history, and the surprising ways they connect to us. And woven through it all, I hope you'll feel the calm, steady rhythm of curiosity that will help carry you into rest. If you enjoy exploring these topics, I invite you to like and subscribe, or simply share a thought down in the comments. It helps us reach more curious souls just like you. But for now, let's relax, quiet the mind, and allow wonder to guide us towards sleep. Let's begin. Tardigrades can survive in the vacuum of space. In 2007, scientists launched tiny groups of tardigrades into orbit, exposing them directly to the cold, airless vacuum of space. No oxygen, no protection, just the raw emptiness surrounding our planet. Nearly every other form of life would perish instantly in such conditions, but the water bears endured. Some not only revived after their journey, they even reproduced once back on Earth. This experiment stunned biologists and astronomers alike, showing that these microscopic creatures can resist one of the harshest environments imaginable. For tardigrades, space is not an instant death sentence. Instead, it becomes just another extreme they can sleep through, waiting for gentler conditions to return. Their success in orbit makes them one of the only known animals that can survive completely outside of Earth's protective atmosphere, hinting at possibilities for life's persistence beyond our world. They withstand temperatures hotter than boiling water. Most organisms collapse and die if their cells are heated beyond a narrow, safe range. Yet tardigrades have endured experimental exposures to water heated well above boiling. At those temperatures, proteins normally unravel, membranes burst, and molecules fall apart. But water bears, in their mysterious resilience, can tolerate such extremes, especially in their dormant ton form. Scientists don't yet fully understand how their cells survive the chaos of such heat, but it appears that their special protective proteins help keep vital structures from being destroyed. This heat resistance is not unlimited, and many individuals perish at sustained high temperatures, but enough survive to remind us how far their limits extend. Imagining a creature the size of a grain of sand, strolling through conditions that mimic volcanic heat, makes the tardigrade feel less like an animal and more like a tiny, living paradox. They endure cold close to absolute zero. On the opposite end of the temperature spectrum, tardigrades have also been frozen to astonishingly low levels. In laboratories, they have survived exposure to temperatures approaching absolute zero, where molecular motion nearly stops. For most living things, freezing is lethal, as sharp ice crystals puncture cells and destroy delicate structures. Yet tardigrades, in their ton state, can resist that destruction. Their bodies avoid catastrophic crystal growth, and their internal chemistry seems to protect vital systems. When thawed, they awaken slowly, as though shrugging off a deep cosmic slumber. Surviving such intense cold suggests that they could endure the icy shadows of comets or even the chill of interplanetary space. The thought of a tiny water bear enduring temperatures colder than any natural place on Earth stretches our imagination about what life-friendly conditions truly mean. They survive complete dehydration. Perhaps their most famous superpower is the ability to dry out entirely. In this state, they lose nearly all the water from their bodies, becoming brittle and immobile. Most living things rely on water as the essence of life. It maintains structure, enables chemistry, and allows cells to function. Without it, death comes quickly. But tardigrades have evolved a trick. When desiccated, they enter suspended animation. Their molecules are locked in place, stabilized by unique proteins and sometimes protective sugars. In this dried-out form, they can wait for months, years, even decades. Then, with a single drop of water, their tissues swell back to life. They stretch their stubby legs, open their tiny mouths, and resume as if no time had passed at all. It is as if they can pause existence itself, skipping over the dangers of drought until conditions improve. They shrink into a suspended ton state. The ton is the tardigrade's secret weapon. When conditions turn hostile, drying, freezing, heating, or flooding, the water bear retracts its legs and curls into a compact barrel-shaped form. Inside this tiny capsule, its metabolism slows to a whisper, sometimes becoming nearly undetectable. In the ton state, a tardigrade can endure crushing pressures, searing radiation, and the absence of oxygen. It is neither fully alive nor truly dead, but resting in a liminal state of suspended animation. Scientists marvel at this transformation because it represents one of the most radical examples of cryptobiosis, the ability to halt life functions and later restart them. The ton is so small and resilient, but it can ride on particles of dust, grains of soil, or drifting fragments of moss, waiting silently for water. When the world grows kind again, the ton uncurls, and the tardigrade returns. Some revive after decades without water. Imagine falling asleep during a drought and waking up 30 years later when rain finally returns. For tardigrades, this is no fantasy. It is a proven reality. Scientists have documented individuals that remained in their ton state for decades, only to rehydrate and walk away as if nothing had happened. Their cells had been frozen in time, their DNA shielded, their proteins stabilized. To endure decades without water is astonishing, because most life can barely manage a few hours or days. Yet these creatures bridge entire human generations in a kind of living stasis. This ability raises provocative questions. How long can tardigrades truly wait? Are there undiscovered species in ancient moss samples still alive after centuries? If so, they remind us that time, which governs so strictly for most creatures, seems to bend around the strange and stubborn lives of water bears. They resist radiation that would kill most life. Radiation is invisible, but lethal. It breaks DNA, shatters molecules, and disrupts the chemistry of life. Humans exposed to high doses develop radiation sickness and die quickly. Yet tardigrades shrug off exposures that would devastate us. In laboratory tests, they have survived levels of ionizing radiation hundreds of times higher than what a human could withstand. The key seems to lie in their remarkable DNA repair systems and unique proteins that shield genetic material from harm. Some scientists suspect their cells can tolerate damage far longer than ours, buying time for repair before lethal breakdown occurs. This resilience has even sparked research into whether tardigrade genes could inspire better radioprotective medicines for people. To think of such a delicate, jelly-like creature weathering radiation storms that would sterilize entire landscapes is one of the clearest proofs of their nearly unbelievable toughness. They endure pressures greater than the deepest ocean trench. The Mariana Trench plunges 11 kilometers beneath the Pacific, where pressures exceed 1,000 times those at the surface. Yet tardigrades have survived laboratory simulations of even greater crushing forces. Their ton state compresses their bodies into forms resistant to collapse. Cellular structures seem uniquely stable under pressure, avoiding the ruptures that destroy most organisms. Imagine being squeezed by forces so great they would crush a submarine, and still surviving. Water bears, tiny as they are, take such extremes in stride. Their pressure resistance suggests they could endure buried environments, like deep rock pores, or perhaps the icy oceans of other worlds. While giant whales and engineered machines struggle in the deep, these microscopic survivors remind us that life's resilience often hides in its smallest members. They survive doses of harsh, industrial chemicals. Tardigrades are not only survivors of natural extremes, but also of artificial assaults. In experiments, some individuals have resisted exposure to toxic chemicals that normally dissolve membranes and denature proteins. While not invincible, many perish in such tests. A surprising fraction endure. Their ton state may protect internal chemistry by sealing structures in a near-glass condition, preventing toxins from binding and damaging them. This resistance has practical importance because it hints that tardigrades may survive accidental contamination or chemical stress in human-altered environments. They're like tiny biochemical test pilots, showing us that even the harshest synthetic hazards might not be absolute barriers to life. Their tolerance of poisons adds yet another layer to their legend as near-indestructible organisms. They survive shock waves that mimic meteor impacts. Life on Earth has endured countless asteroid strikes, some powerful enough to reshape the planet. Could anything survive such violence directly? Tests suggest that tardigrades, astonishingly, can. Scientists have fired them in tiny projectiles at speeds that mimic impacts, and some emerged alive. The shockwaves were the kind that shred most cells instantly, yet the tardigrades, in their ton forms, endured. This resilience makes them candidates for surviving not only on Earth, but possibly traveling between planets inside rocks blasted into space. The idea that microscopic water bears might hitchhike across the solar system on meteor fragments, quietly waiting inside, expands our sense of what survival truly means. If they can withstand the fury of impacts, then perhaps the spread of life between worlds is not as impossible as it once seemed. Their lineage reaches back over 500 million years. Tardigrades are not just survivors of harsh conditions, they are survivors of deep time. Genetic studies suggest their ancestors first appeared more than 500 million years ago, during the Cambrian explosion, when life on Earth was experimenting with wild new forms. While whole dynasties of creatures rose and vanished, the water bears persisted. They watched the continents drift apart, the seas rise and fall, forests spread, and dinosaurs come and go. Few animals alive today can claim such an ancient lineage. To hold a tardigrade in focus under a microscope is to glimpse not only a living creature, but also a direct thread to Earth's most distant biological past. Their stubby legs may be small, but they walk across a timescale that dwarfs human history, reminding us that resilience can be measured not only in toughness, but in endurance across ages. They outlived all 5 major mass extinctions. Earth has suffered 5 cataclysmic mass extinctions, events that wiped out vast portions of life. Dinosaurs disappeared at one, ancient trilobites vanished at another. Yet tardigrades endured them all. Whether it was asteroid impacts, global volcanic eruptions, dramatic shifts in climate, or the oxygen crises of deep time, these tiny animals managed to persist. Their ability to enter suspended animation may have helped them survive the worst winters and droughts in history. Unlike many species that required specific conditions to thrive, tardigrades could simply wait out disaster. This means their lineage is older than the dinosaurs, older than flowering plants, even older than many oceans in their current form. In every ecological collapse, they found a way through. That stubborn resilience suggests that if Earth were to suffer another catastrophic shift, tardigrades might once again be among the last creatures left standing. Fossilized tardigrades are almost never found. For animals so widespread, tardigrades leave almost no fossil record. Their bodies are soft, tiny, and easily destroyed by time. Unlike shells or bones, their tissues vanish quickly after death, leaving little trace in rock. This makes it difficult for scientists to piece together their evolutionary history. Only a handful of fossilized specimens have ever been confirmed, mostly preserved in amber, drops of ancient tree resin that captured them as they crawled through moss millions of years ago. The rarity of these fossils means that nearly everything we know about their ancient past comes from living species and genetic studies. Each time a new fossil is discovered, it feels like unearthing a long-lost chapter of an otherwise invisible story. The absence of evidence only adds to their mystery, making these tiny creatures seem like elusive ghosts that slipped almost unnoticed through Earth's geological ages. The first fossil tardigrade was only discovered in 2021. For centuries, tardigrades had been known only from living specimens. Then, in 2021, scientists announced the discovery of the first confirmed fossil species, Paradoraphorubius chronocaribius. Trapped in Dominican amber about 16 million years old, this fossil preserved the water bear in stunning detail. Researchers could examine its claws, its mouthparts, even subtle features that matched closely to modern relatives. Finding such a fossil was monumental because it provided a rare calibration point for tardigrade evolution. It showed that even tens of millions of years ago, these animals already looked strikingly similar to those alive today. The discovery suggests that once tardigrades evolved their winning design, compact, adaptable, and resilient, very little needed to change. They became evolutionary survivors, not only in function but also in form. A drop of amber thus gave us the clearest glimpse yet of tardigrades frozen in deep time. Their ancestors first crawled through prehistoric seas. Today we think of tardigrades as moss dwellers and soil wanderers, but their story began in the oceans. The earliest water bears are believed to have lived in prehistoric seas, creeping along sediments and feeding on microbial mats. These were shallow, fertile waters filled with algae, bacteria, and early animal life. From these beginnings, tardigrades gradually spread into brackish and freshwater habitats, eventually climbing onto moist land environments such as moss cushions and lichen patches. This ancient marine origin explains many of their quirks, including their reliance on thin films of water to stay active. Even now, every tardigrade on land carries the legacy of an oceanic ancestry, their biology still tied to the presence of liquid water. The thought that a creature once adapted to ancient seas now survives in parking lot moss shows the incredible journey these tiny animals have taken across habitats. They were among early animals to colonize moist landfills. Long before vertebrates set foot on land, microscopic pioneers like tardigrades had already crept into damp terrestrial niches. Scientists believe they were among the earliest animals to colonize the delicate water films that coat mosses, lichens, and soil particles. These habitats are unstable, they dry and rehydrate frequently, shift with rainfall, and fluctuate in temperature. For tardigrades, though, instability was not a threat, but a challenge they mastered. Their ability to desiccate into tons made them perfect colonizers of land environments where water could vanish suddenly. By doing so, they opened the door to a new world, exploiting habitats that were inaccessible to to less adaptable animals. In many ways, their conquest of moist land foreshadowed the later, grander invasions of land by insects, amphibians, and reptiles. Tiny water bears paved the way, showing that life could thrive outside the ocean's protective cradle. Their exact position on the tree of life is still debated. Even with modern genetics, scientists still puzzle over where exactly tardigrades belong on the evolutionary tree. They are clearly related to arthropods, the group that includes insects, spiders, and crustaceans, and to onychophorans, the velvet worms. But the exact branching point is disputed. Some analyses suggest they are closer to insects, others hint they split earlier, and still others propose unique placements entirely. This uncertainty comes from their unusual mixture of traits. They walk like miniature arthropods, but have simplified body structures, and their genetic code carries unique elements. Their tiny size and lack of a robust fossil record complicate the picture further. The debate continues, with each new genome adding pieces to the puzzle. Until the mystery is resolved, tardigrades remain not only biological marvels, but also evolutionary enigmas. Their place in life's grand family portrait still drawn in faint outlines. They share deep roots with insects and velvet worms. Despite the uncertainty, there is consensus that tardigrades are close kin of two fascinating groups, arthropods and velvet woes. All three likely share a common ancestor that lived hundreds of millions of years ago. This kinship explains their jointed limbs, their molting exoskeletons, and certain nervous system patterns. Velvet worms are larger, slimy predators with stubby legs. Arthropods diversified into crabs, beetles, and butterflies. Tardigrades remained tiny wanderers. In this light, a water bear is not an isolated oddity, but part of a lineage that gave rise to some of Earth's most successful animals. Seeing their tiny claws under a microscope, one can imagine the distant family resemblance to the pincers of crabs or the hooked feet of insects. The connection adds a surprising depth to their story. In their tiny bodies, tardigrades preserve echoes of the grand evolutionary saga that shaped life on land and sea. They show signs of horizontal gene transfer, still debated. In 2015, a bold study suggested that tardigrades had acquired nearly 1/6 of their DNA from other species, bacteria, fungi, even plants, through a process called horizontal gene transfer. The claim was astonishing, implying that water bears had borrowed survival tricks from across the tree of life. Later research revised the numbers downward, suggesting the initial estimate was too high, but confirmed that at least some foreign genes are indeed present. This debate highlights just how unusual their genomes are. Whether they borrowed DNA outright or evolved similar tricks independently, the result is the same. Tardigrades are genetic mosaics, unlike any other animal. If even part of their resilience comes from this borrowed toolkit, then they stand as living examples of evolution's inventiveness, a reminder that life sometimes shares its secrets in surprising ways. Their evolution includes unique survival proteins found nowhere else. Among the strangest findings in tardigrade biology is the discovery of proteins, unlike those of any other known organism. These proteins, such as DSUP, short for damage suppressor, appear to shield DNA from radiation and oxidative stress. Others help tardigrades enter their glassy, vitrified state, protecting cells during desiccation. Such proteins are so unusual that scientists are still mapping out how they work at the molecular level. Some have already been transplanted into other organisms, including human cells in laboratory cultures, where they conferred protective benefits. This uniqueness suggests that tardigrades invented their own molecular survival gear, crafted by evolution's long experiments in extreme living. It also raises tantalizing possibilities. If we can understand and perhaps harness these proteins, We may one day borrow a page from the water bear's survival manual to safeguard ourselves in medicine, space, travel, or biotechnology. Most are smaller than a grain of sand. The vast majority of tardigrades are almost impossibly small. Many measure less than 0.5 millimeter in length, which means you could line up a dozen of them across the head of a pin. At this size, they slip between grains of soil, weave through the fibers of moss, and swim in droplets of dew. To our eyes, they are invisible, entire lives unfolding just beyond the threshold of perception. Yet under a microscope, the blur sharpens into a creature with legs, claws, a mouth, and even a lumbering gait. Their size reminds us that entire ecosystems thrive in scales we rarely consider. A hidden world of forests made of moss stems and lakes made of rain droplets. The tardigrade is a perfect ambassador to that realm, tiny, overlooked, and yet carrying resilience that outshines nearly everything larger. Some curl into tight balls when disturbed. Not all of a tardigrade's defenses involve superpowers. Sometimes, simplicity works just as well. When startled or handled roughly, certain species curl themselves into tiny, tight balls, drawing in their legs and tucking down their heads. This defensive posture doesn't stop predators completely, but it makes them harder to grasp and signals that the animal is ready to endure. It's a miniature version of what hedgehogs or pillbugs do at a larger scale. In the microscopic world, curling up can buy precious seconds, confusing attackers and protecting softer tissues from immediate harm. It's a reminder that for all their astonishing abilities, tardigrades also rely on small, ordinary tricks of survival, simple behaviors that mirror those of much larger animals. Even in their vulnerability, these tiny creatures echo the strategies of life across sizes and forms. They walk on full pairs of stout, jointed legs. A tardigrade's movement is one of its most charming features. With 4 pairs of stubby, jointed legs, they crawl and clamber in ways that feel familiar, almost mammalian despite their size. Under the microscope, you can watch them lifting each foot in a slow, deliberate step, as though carrying a heavy, invisible weight. The coordination of 8 limbs gives them surprising control as they navigate moss forests and soil particles, gripping surfaces with ease. Their gait is so recognizable that it inspired their nickname, water bears. Scientists studying locomotion have even compared their walk to that of insects many times larger, noting that some of the same patterns appear in both. In this way, the tardigrade becomes a bridge between worlds. An animal so small it vanishes to the naked eye, yet moving with a rhythm we instinctively recognize as the careful walk of a living being. Each foot ends in tiny hooked claws. Examine a tardigrade's leg under high magnification, and you'll see delicate hooked claws curving outward from each foot. These claws are essential tools, allowing water bears to grip moss cells, anchor themselves to sediment, and pull their bodies forward with a slow but steady pace. They are not weapons in the sense of tearing prey. Instead, they are grappling hooks for a microscopic jungle. Different species show variations, some with long, slender claws, others with stubbier hooks, features that help scientists distinguish them. In the silent world of moss and water films, those claws are the difference between drifting helplessly and climbing with intention. They may look simple, but they embody the essence of adaptation, perfectly shaped for the miniature landscapes tardigrades call home. Their bear-like gait inspired the name water bear. When Johann August Ephraim Goes first described these creatures in 1773, he noticed something striking. Despite their tiny size, they walked like lumbering little bears. Their deliberate side-to-side steps, their squat bodies, and their sturdy legs evoked the image of a shaggy mammal wandering slowly through undergrowth. From this resemblance came the enduring nickname, water bear. It has stuck for centuries, perhaps because it captures both their appearance and their peculiar charm. Watching one march across a field of moss cells, you can almost imagine it as a miniature animal in a vast forest, unaware of its own scale. The name makes them instantly accessible to us, a bridge between our world of large creatures and the hidden microcosmos where tardigrades live. It's a reminder that even at microscopic scales, movement can be familiar, endearing, and oddly relatable. Others know them as moss piglets. In addition to water bear, tardigrades carry another nickname, moss piglets. This name emphasizes their plump, rounded bodies and the fact that they are often found crawling among moss cushions. With their squat proportions and snuffling mouths, they do resemble tiny piglets exploring a green barnyard of moss leaves. The term adds a playful twist to their image, contrasting their incredible toughness with a name that sounds almost comical. Moss piglet has become popular in classrooms and children's books, helping young learners imagine these microscopic creatures as friendly, approachable beings. For scientists, the name is less formal, but no less affectionate. It shows how even the most extraordinary survivors in biology can carry an image that is humble, even cute. These tiny moss piglets may be tougher than astronauts, but they remain deeply endearing in their small, chubby form. Many species have transparent bodies. Under a microscope, most tardigrades reveal their inner workings without dissection or staining. Their bodies are naturally transparent, allowing scientists and curious students to watch organs and movements in real time. You can see their guts fill with green algae as they feed, their eggs forming inside the female, and even the pumping motion of their pharyngeal bulb as it draws in food. Transparency is not unique to tardigrades. Many small organisms share it, but in them it adds to the fascination, because it makes their survival tricks visible. Watching a tongue shrink into its compact form or an embryo slowly developing within an egg feels like observing nature's most delicate secrets without interruption. Their see-through bodies turn the microscope into a window, giving us direct access to processes usually hidden inside opaque skin and bone. Their guts can glow under certain microscopes. In some conditions, a tardigrade's digestive system can emit a faint glow when viewed under fluorescent microscopes. This glow often comes from the food they've consumed, such as algae or bacteria, which may naturally contain pigments that respond to specific wavelengths of light. The result is a shimmering, almost otherworldly view of a creature lit from within. It's not a natural bioluminescence, but rather an artifact of how certain substances interact with scientific equipment. Still, the effect is mesmerizing. A transparent body with glowing channels, like a tiny lantern drifting across a slide. These glowing guts remind us that even the smallest animals can create moments of unexpected beauty, especially when modern tools let us see them in ways nature never intended. For students and researchers alike, it adds a spark of wonder to the already astonishing story of the water bear. Simple eye spots let them sense light and dark. Tardigrades are not blind wanderers. Many species have a pair of eye spots near the front of their bodies. These are not complex eyes like ours, but simple organs capable of detecting light and dark. They help the animals orient themselves, avoiding intense light that might dry them out and seeking the safety of shaded, moist environments. The eye spots are little more than clusters of pigment cells, but they serve a crucial role in survival. To us, they look like tiny black dots, just visible under magnification. It's fascinating to think of a creature so small, carrying a sensory system, primitive yet effective, to navigate its miniature world. Their eye spots hint at the universality of light as a guide for life, whether in forests, oceans, or films of water on moss. Even at this scale, vision, however simple, shapes existence. Some species have no eyes at all. Not every tardigrade relies on light. In species that live deep in soil or inside sediments where light never penetrates, eye spots are unnecessary. These species are completely eyeless, navigating instead by touch and chemical cues. Without light to guide them, they rely on their claws and legs to feel their way forward, exploring their environment step by step. Their lack of eyes shows how adaptable tardigrades are. Evolution shapes each species for its particular niche, giving or removing traits as needed. In the darkness of soil grains or the murky depths of sediments, eyes would offer no advantage, so tardigrades in these places thrive perfectly well without them. It's a reminder that what seems essential to us, like sight, is not universal. For the water bear, survival comes not from seeing the world, but from enduring it. Tardigrades have no blood. Unlike many animals, tardigrades don't carry blood coursing through vessels. Their bodies are so small and simple that they don't need it. Instead, nutrients and gases diffuse naturally through their tissues, carried in the water that surrounds them. This absence of blood makes them seem almost alien, as if stripped down to the most basic design for survival. For scientists, it also makes them easier to study under microscopes, because nothing opaque hides their internal organs. The lack of blood has not hindered their success. Instead, it shows how many different solutions evolution finds to the same problem of sustaining life. In a way, tardigrades remind us that what we think of as universal, blood pumping through a heart, is not a requirement for survival. These water bears walk their ancient paths without ever needing the crimson currents we take for granted. Their body cavity is filled with circulating fluid. Instead of blood, tardigrades rely on a simple body cavity filled with fluid. This liquid bathes their organs directly, carrying nutrients, waste, and dissolved gases across tiny distances. In scientific terms, this kind of system is called a hemocole, an open cavity rather than a closed network of veins and arteries. For tardigrades, it's all they need. Their minuscule size ensures that diffusion across the fluid happens quickly enough to sustain life. Under a microscope, this internal environment looks like a shimmering, transparent sea inside the animal, a microcosm within a microcosm. It's a vivid reminder that complex circulatory systems are luxuries for larger creatures, not requirements for all life. The water bear thrives with this ancient, minimalist design, proof that life can flourish with the simplest of plumbing, as long as the scale is small enough and the strategy is sound. They have no lungs or heart. When we think of animals, we often picture organs, lungs inflating, hearts beating. But tardigrades manage without either. Their tiny bodies eliminate the need for specialized pumps or airways. Instead, oxygen diffuses directly through their surface and into their cells, while nutrients drift in their body fluids. With no lungs to fill and no heart to beat, their internal rhythm is silent. This simplicity is one reason they can shrink into a tongue. With no elaborate organs to protect, their body is easier to preserve during stress. It's almost as though they represent a minimal blueprint for animal life: legs, a brain, a gut, but none of the extra machinery. And still, they endure conditions that defeat far larger, more complex organisms. The absence of lungs or heart is not a weakness, but part of the elegance that makes their resilience possible. Oxygen diffuses directly through their cuticle. In tardigrades, breathing doesn't involve inhaling or exhaling. Oxygen seeps gently through their cuticle, the flexible outer covering that serves as their skin. This diffusion works because they are so small, oxygen molecules don't have far to travel before reaching vital cells. Their cuticle is not just a barrier, but a gateway, allowing gases to move in and out freely. This method ties them closely to water. Without a film of moisture, diffusion fails, which is why they must rely on their tom state during drought. Watching them through a microscope, it's strange to think that no breath stirs within them, no air passes in or out. Life continues silently, with oxygen slipping invisibly across a thin skin. This quiet way of breathing illustrates how different, yet effective, survival strategies can be when life adapts to microscopic scales. Their brain layout echoes patterns seen in arthropods. Despite their simplicity, tardigrades have a brain, a small cluster of nerve cells that sits above the esophagus. What fascinates scientists is that its structure resembles that of arthropods, their distant cousins. Nerve cords extend down the length of the body, connecting to ganglia in each segment, a layout that feels like a miniature version of an insect's nervous system. This resemblance strengthens the evolutionary link between tardigrades and larger joint-legged creatures. Under the microscope, the brain itself isn't grand, but its function is essential, coordinating movement, sensory input, and feeding. For an animal so small, the presence of such organization is remarkable. It suggests that even at the tiniest scales, nervous systems can reflect ancient patterns, echoing through evolutionary time. In the water bear's brain, we glimpse not just a control center, but a living map of its kinship to other creatures. Females lay eggs with elaborately ornamented shells. Tardigrade reproduction produces some of the most beautiful objects in the microscopic world: eggs. Female water bears lay them either directly into the environment or within the shed cuticle of their molting skin. Under magnification, these eggs often show intricate ornamentation. Some are smooth and simple, but many display ridges, bumps, or delicate sculpting across the surface. These patterns are not only lovely but also useful to scientists, who use them to identify species. Each egg becomes a tiny masterpiece, hinting at both function and artistry. In classrooms, students are often astonished to discover how much variety exists in such small spheres of life. The ornate shells protect the embryo inside, giving the next generation a chance to endure. Even at the scale of fractions of a millimeter, life finds ways to combine strength, practicality, and beauty into its designs. Some eggs sprout spikes like alien spheres. Among the many varieties of tardigrade eggs, some are truly spectacular. These eggs are covered with long, sharp spines or branching filaments, making them look like alien spheres bristling with defenses. The spikes may serve multiple purposes: discouraging predators, anchoring the eggs to surfaces, or helping them remain in place until hatching. Under the microscope, they resemble miniature sea urchins or fantastical seed pods from a science fiction story. Scientists marvel at the diversity, noting how each species develops its own signature egg style, from smooth and featureless to extravagantly spiked. For observers, it adds another layer of wonder to the already improbable story of tardigrades. Not only are the adults nearly indestructible, but even their eggs carry a visual uniqueness that feels otherworldly. It is as if their resilience begins before life itself has properly begun. Mothers sometimes shed their skin to guard the eggs. In certain species, female tardigrades protect their eggs by laying them inside the old cuticle they shed during molting. This discarded skin becomes a shelter, keeping the eggs safe from predators, drying, and other hazards. The strategy is both simple and effective, recycling a cast-off part of the body into a protective capsule. Under the microscope, you can sometimes see a cluster of eggs nestled inside the translucent husk of a parent's shed skin, like pearls in a fragile case. When the young hatch, they emerge into the world already shielded during their most vulnerable stage. This behavior highlights the quiet ingenuity of tardigrades, using what they already possess to safeguard future generations. Even at this tiny scale, parental care finds a way, ensuring that life continues against the odds. Hatchlings emerge as tiny, fully formed tardigrades. When tardigrade eggs finally hatch, the young are not larvae or worm-like infants. They are miniature versions of adults, complete with legs, claws, and the ability to move and feed. These hatchlings measure just a fraction of a millimeter, but they already carry the full blueprint of the water bear design. Over time, they will grow by molting, shedding their exoskeletons to expand. But from the moment they emerge, they are unmistakably tardigrades. Watching them under a microscope feels like witnessing a secret miracle. Tiny creatures awakening inside fragile shells, ready to walk in the microcosmos immediately. This precocial development means they can survive independently from birth, without extended parental care. It's another strategy of resilience. Each new tardigrade steps into the world fully prepared for the challenges it will face. Some species show sex ratios strongly skewed toward females. In certain tardigrade populations, females far outnumber males, sometimes to the point where males are rarely seen at all. This skewed sex ratio may be linked to their reproductive strategies. Some species are capable of parthenogenesis, reproducing without males, while others simply rely on dominant female populations to sustain numbers. For scientists, these ratios are clues to how populations adapt in environments where finding mates is difficult. For the tardigrades themselves, it's another example of flexibility. If circumstances make one strategy more efficient, evolution provides a way. The prevalence of females highlights how different survival can look in the microscopic world. While many larger animals depend on balanced populations of both sexes, tardigrades demonstrate that life finds alternate paths, reshaping even reproduction to fit the harsh realities of their tiny ecosystems. They live on mountaintops in thin water films. High in the mountains, where moss clings to rocks and the air is thin, tardigrades live in delicate films of water that coat each leaf and stem. These environments are harsh, exposed to wind, cold nights, and blazing sun by day, yet water bears thrive there. The thin water layers can vanish quickly, but the tardigrades respond by entering their ton state, enduring until clouds or rain return. In this way, mountaintop mosses become miniature kingdoms filled with some of Earth's toughest residents. Imagining them crawling across single moss cells at altitudes where trees no longer grow brings perspective. Resilience isn't always about strength in size, but about patience in smallness. In places where only the hardiest plants survive, these tiny animals persist as quietly as they always have, turning mountaintops into silent strongholds of microscopic life. They also thrive near deep-sea hydrothermal vents. At the other extreme, far beneath the waves, tardigrades have been found near hydrothermal vents, places where superheated water bursts from cracks in the ocean floor. Pressures here are immense, darkness absolute, and temperatures swing between near freezing and boiling hot. Few creatures can tolerate such contrasts, yet tardigrades endure. In sediments and along vent structures, they navigate a world defined by minerals, bacteria, and extremes. For scientists, finding water bears in such places was a surprise, proving that their range extends from the highest mountains to the deepest seas. This versatility suggests that wherever water, however fleeting or hostile, is present, tardigrades find a way. They are not specialists bound to one habitat, but generalists capable of bridging the most dramatic extremes on Earth. In the volcanic shadows of the deep sea, they continue their slow, steady crawl, undisturbed by conditions that seem utterly alien to us. Populations persist inside polar ice and snow. Tardigrades are no strangers to the coldest regions of Earth. They have been discovered in polar ice, where temperatures remain below freezing for much of the year, and in snowpacks that cover landscapes for months on end. These icy homes may seem barren, but even here, Thin veins of liquid water provide microhabitats where water bears can remain active. When conditions become too extreme, they enter their ton state, preserving themselves until melting begins. It is extraordinary to think of these tiny creatures enduring the long polar night, buried in ice, waiting patiently for the sun's return. Their presence in snow and glaciers demonstrates their ability to turn nearly any environment into a livable one. Even where humans would freeze within minutes, water bears persist, silent companions in the most frozen places on our planet. Tropical rainforests are rich with tardigrade species. If polar ice demonstrates their endurance, tropical rainforests show their abundance. In the moist canopies and forest floors of these regions, tardigrades flourish in staggering diversity. Every patch of moss or lichen may host multiple species, each with subtle differences in shape, claws, and eggs. The near-constant humidity provides an ideal environment, allowing water bears to remain active much of the year without retreating into tons. For scientists, tropical forests are treasure troves, revealing new species at nearly every turn. Each discovery adds to the picture of tardigrades not just as survivors, but as thriving members of complex ecosystems. Hidden among the riot of birds, insects, and plants, these microscopic animals live their quiet lives, feeding, reproducing, and enduring, largely unseen. In the lushest environments on Earth, the humble water bear has found yet another kingdom to call its own. They creep between individual grains of beach sand. On sandy shores, where waves lap and tides shift, tardigrades find another unusual habitat: the spaces between grains of sand. These tiny pockets hold films of water just thick enough for a microscopic traveler to move through. In this shifting landscape, tardigrades crawl carefully, gripping each sand grain with their claws, navigating an environment that changes with every tide. The beach is full of dangers: drying sun, pounding surf, and hungry predators. Yet the water bears adapt. Some retreat into tons when the tide recedes, reviving when the water returns. Others remain active in sheltered crevices. This interstitial lifestyle is invisible to beachgoers, yet it forms an entire hidden ecosystem beneath our feet. Next time you walk along the shore, imagine that, between each grain of sand, entire worlds exist, populated by water bears on their slow, deliberate journeys. Freshwater ponds and bird baths host hidden colonies. You don't need to climb mountains or explore the deep sea to find tardigrades. They may be thriving in your backyard. Freshwater ponds, puddles, and even bird baths provide excellent habitats. Mosses that grow on damp stones or the edges of garden features often harbor colonies. In these places, water bears live among algae and microorganisms, grazing, reproducing, and sometimes even preying on each other. Collect a bit of moss, place it under a microscope, and with patience, you may see one lumbering across the field of view. Their presence in such ordinary spots makes them special ambassadors of hidden nature, proof that astonishing creatures are never far away. Even in the most familiar settings, tardigrades create unseen worlds, reminding us that mystery does not require distance, only a shift in perspective. Moss and lichen carpets are classic tardigrade homes. If tardigrades have a signature habitat, it is moss and lichen. These organisms trap thin layers of moisture that water bears require, creating stable microworlds. Lift a patch of moss from a tree trunk or garden wall, soak it in water, and a whole community of tardigrades may awaken. For centuries, scientists have relied on moss samples as the easiest way to study them. This close association has even influenced their nicknames. Moss piglets comes directly from their fondness for these environments. Moss and lichen are not just homes but lifelines, offering the damp stability that allows activity, feeding, and reproduction. The partnership is so reliable that wherever mosses thrive, From city parks to ancient forests, tardigrades are almost certainly close by, clambering slowly across the miniature landscapes that have supported them for countless generations. Urban roofs and parking lots can harbor them. It might be tempting to imagine tardigrades only in exotic or remote locations, but they are just as comfortable in human-dominated environments. Urban roofs often accumulate patches of moss, and even neglected parking lots can host small colonies. In these unexpected places, water bears go about their lives unnoticed. Rain collects in shallow depressions, creating the moisture they need, and algae or bacteria supply food. Scientists sampling city mosses have routinely found thriving tardigrade populations, proving that resilience is not limited to the wilderness. They are our hidden neighbors, quietly living above our heads and beneath our feet. Their presence in such ordinary locations emphasizes that survival doesn't always require pristine wilderness. Sometimes it only needs a little water, a bit of food, and a safe place to crawl. Even in concrete jungles, life finds a way. They live on every continent, including Antarctica. From the frozen wastes of Antarctica to the humid forests of the Amazon, tardigrades span the globe. They are among the most widely distributed animals on Earth, inhabiting every continent and nearly every ecosystem where liquid water can be found, even briefly. In Antarctica, they survive in icy soils and beneath snow, reviving during short summer melts. In deserts, they hunker down as tons until rare rains arrive. This global distribution highlights their adaptability. No single climate or geography confines them. For biologists, their presence everywhere makes them valuable subjects for studying how life responds to extremes. For us, it reinforces the wonder of their quiet ubiquity. No matter where you travel, mountaintop, desert, rainforest, or polar plateau, tardigrades are likely already there, waiting unseen, tiny ambassadors of Earth's universal capacity for endurance. Some species have been found in household gutters. Even the humblest of human structures can host water bears. Rain gutters, clogged with leaves and moss, create moist, shaded environments rich in microbial food. In these miniature ecosystems, tardigrades thrive. Researchers collecting gutter debris from urban homes have repeatedly discovered them, proving that you don't need a laboratory expedition to the ends of the earth to find these animals. They may be thriving just above your windows, walking slowly across damp leaf litter in a forgotten gutter. This adaptability reflects their opportunistic nature. Wherever water and organic matter accumulate, tardigrades are ready to move in. The idea that such exotic survivors of space and deep time might also be living in our roof gutters adds a touch of humor to their story, blending the cosmic with the commonplace in the most unexpected way. They were the first animals to survive direct space exposure. When scientists first exposed living animals to the vacuum of space, they didn't choose large, complex creatures. Instead, they chose tardigrades, and the gamble paid off. In 2007, water bears became the first animals ever known to survive direct exposure to outer space. Without air, without pressure, and bathed in unfiltered cosmic radiation, they endured conditions that mimic the lifeless void beyond our planet. No protective capsule shielded them. They floated in the raw environment itself, an ordeal that would kill almost anything else instantly. And yet, when returned to Earth, many revived. This milestone experiment didn't just demonstrate tardigrade toughness, it expanded our understanding of where life can exist. If these tiny creatures can live through space exposure, perhaps the boundaries we draw around habitability are far more flexible than we once believed. In 2007, orbital survivors revived back on Earth. The European Space Agency's Photon M3 mission carried tardigrades into low Earth orbit, exposing some to the vacuum and others to intense radiation. When the mission ended, scientists opened the capsules and carefully added water. To their astonishment, the tardigrades stirred, unfolded from their tons, and began walking again. Not only did they survive, but some appeared unaffected by their time beyond Earth. This revival was historic, the first proof that multicellular animals could endure and return from direct space exposure. For astrobiology, the implications were profound. If tardigrades could ride out orbit, then perhaps life might also survive the harsh journeys between planets. It suggested that panspermia, the spread of life through space, was not entirely impossible. For the water bears, though, it was simply another test passed, another reminder that resilience often hides in the smallest of creatures. Some returned from space and still reproduced. Survival alone would have been impressive, but tardigrades brought back from space did more. They reproduced. After enduring vacuum and radiation, individuals revived on Earth and went on to lay eggs, hatching new generations. This proved that their survival wasn't temporary or superficial. Their reproductive systems had endured intact, and their offspring carried on the lineage without apparent harm. This is remarkable because radiation often damages DNA in ways that prevent healthy reproduction. For tardigrades, their unique DNA repair and protection systems seemed to shield them even from these long-term effects. The ability not just to live, but to create new life after such ordeals raises tantalizing questions. Could a tardigrade survive a journey through space on a meteor fragment and then restart a population on a new world? With every successful hatchling, the idea feels slightly less like science fiction. They endured cosmic radiation on low-Earth-orbit platforms. Radiation in space is relentless. Cosmic rays and solar particles bombard anything beyond Earth's protective atmosphere and magnetic field. In experiments aboard orbiting platforms, tardigrades were directly exposed to this radiation for extended periods. While many organisms would have suffered lethal DNA damage, water bears resisted. Their protective proteins and repair mechanisms allowed them to recover from assaults that shred genetic material. For researchers, this resilience makes them living test subjects for studying how life might fare on Mars, Europa, or other bodies without thick atmospheres. It also helps us imagine spacecraft materials and biological systems that could be hardened against radiation. For the tardigrades themselves, the ordeal is simply another environment endured, whether it's deep-sea pressures, boiling heat, or the silent storm of cosmic radiation. These tiny animals seem endlessly prepared to push past life's usual boundaries. Thousands were accidentally delivered to the moon in a crash. In 2019, a private lunar lander called Bereshit crashed onto the surface of the moon. On board, among other materials, were thousands of dehydrated tardigrades. Packed into their ton states, they were intended as part of an archive of life and knowledge. The crash scattered them across the lunar surface, where they remain to this day. Whether any survived the impact is uncertain, but the thought is captivating. Earth's toughest animal now rests, perhaps still viable, on another world. They may be dormant forever, without water to revive them, but their presence is symbolic. Life from Earth has physically reached the moon, not just in human footsteps or spacecraft debris, but in microscopic form. The idea that water bears now lie among the dust and craters adds an extraordinary twist to their legend as cosmic travelers. They're nicknamed astronauts of the microscopic world. Because of their success in space experiments, tardigrades have earned a playful nickname, astronauts of the microscopic world. They have no rockets, no helmets, no oxygen tanks, yet they have traveled where few animals ever will. Their ton state is their spacesuit, their protective proteins their shield. Scientists admire them not only for their resilience, but also for their symbolism. They represent the possibility that life itself is inherently more adaptable than we imagine. In classrooms and popular media, the astronaut image has helped spread their fame, turning them into ambassadors of extreme biology. There's something endearing about the idea of these plump, lumbering creatures floating among the stars. While they may never walk on the Moon or Mars in the way humans dream of, their microscopic journeys remind us that exploration sometimes happens in the smallest, quietest forms. Models suggest they could survive certain asteroid impacts. Asteroid impacts are among the most devastating events Earth has endured, unleashing shockwaves, firestorms, and global climate collapse. Yet some studies suggest that tardigrades could survive even these cataclysms, at least the initial shock. Their ton state shields them against immense pressures and sudden changes. Simulations indicate that within certain ranges of velocity and energy, they could endure impacts that sterilize vast landscapes. While they would not escape all consequences, their potential to survive what erases countless other species is striking. This resilience reinforces why they have persisted across mass extinctions. They do not need to resist every force, only enough to keep a fraction of their population alive. If tardigrades can weather asteroid impacts, then their endurance is not just impressive, it's planetary, spanning even the most violent upheavals Earth has to offer. Their ton state informs ideas about interstellar survival. The ability of tardigrades to pause their lives in a tongue has inspired scientists to think about interstellar survival. Could other organisms use similar strategies to endure long journeys between stars? In suspended animation, metabolism nearly stops, and the passage of time becomes irrelevant. For tardigrades, this means surviving decades in dry moss or frozen soil. For us, it suggests that if life can find a way to preserve itself so completely, then the barriers of space travel may not be absolute. Studying water bears helps researchers imagine cryogenic stasis, human hibernation, and the preservation of cells for medical or space purposes. The ton is not only a biological curiosity, it's a model of survival beyond time. In its quiet, curled form, the water bear shows us a glimpse of what it might take for life to bridge the vast distances between worlds. They feature in panspermia experiments testing life's limits. Panspermia is the idea that life might spread between planets, carried on rocks or dust blasted from one world to another. Tardigrades, with their legendary toughness, have become central figures in experiments testing this possibility. By firing them in projectiles, exposing them to vacuum, or simulating re-entry heat, scientists explore whether microscopic passengers could endure such journeys. While not all survive, enough do to make the theory plausible. The water bear's role in these experiments is both scientific and symbolic. They embody the idea that life is not confined to a single planet. If organisms can endure space travel, then the seeds of biology might drift farther than we ever expected. In this way, tardigrades become not just earthly survivors, but cosmic representatives of life's tenacity. They help scientists design experiments for Mars and beyond. Tardigrades are more than curiosities. They are research partners in planning future space exploration. By studying how they endure radiation, pressure, and desiccation, scientists design better experiments to test habitability on Mars, Europa, or Enceladus. If these tiny creatures can survive such extremes, then microbial life elsewhere might too. Tardigrades act as benchmarks. If even they cannot endure a simulated environment, chances are slim that alien organisms could. But if they can, the door remains open. Their presence in astrobiology labs shows how a creature too small to see with the naked eye can play an outsized role in humanity's exploration of space. While humans dream of stepping onto new worlds, tardigrades already model what survival beyond Earth might look like, and quietly help us prepare for discoveries still to come. tardigrades can repair severely damaged DNA. One of the tardigrade's most remarkable talents is its ability to mend broken DNA. Radiation, desiccation, and freezing all fractured genetic material into pieces. In most animals, such damage is fatal. But water bears possess repair systems that stitch their DNA back together, restoring the blueprint of life after catastrophic harm. It's like having a built-in mechanic that can reassemble a shredded instruction manual. This skill is vital to their survival, because in their ton state, their DNA endures stresses that would pulverize unprotected strands. When conditioned to improve, repair enzymes get to work, healing what was broken. For scientists, this ability offers inspiration. Could we one day borrow the tardigrade's tools to improve our own resilience to radiation, aging, or disease? For now, it remains their quiet superpower, a genetic safety net that allows them to come back from situations most life could never escape. A unique protein shields their DNA from harm. Beyond repair, tardigrades also prevent damage in the first place. They produce a remarkable protein called DSUP, short for damage suppressor. This protein forms a shield around DNA, protecting it from harmful molecules and radiation. In laboratory tests, DSUP reduced DNA damage in cells exposed to X-rays by nearly half. No other animal is known to make this protein naturally, making it one of the tardigrade's signature molecular defenses. The discovery of DSUP astonished researchers because it showed that resilience could be engineered at the level of proteins alone. In the microscopic world, this shield is invisible, but its effects are profound. A living barrier that keeps the instructions of life intact. For tardigrades, DSUP is not an optional luxury. It is a guardian, standing watch over their fragile genetic code whenever they face the chaos of extreme environments. That protein has protected cultured human cells in experiments. In one groundbreaking experiment, scientists inserted the tardigrade's DSUP protein into human cells grown in a laboratory. The result was astonishing. The modified human cells became more resistant to radiation, suffering far less DNA damage than usual. For the first time, a piece of tardigrade biology had been transplanted into another species, and worked. This success sparked imaginations. Could DSUP, or proteins like it, one day be used in medicine, protecting patients from radiation therapies? Could astronauts use it to endure the harsh cosmic environment of long space missions? While such applications remain speculative, the proof of principle is clear. What evolved in a microscopic moss dweller may hold keys to protecting much larger organisms, including us. It is a rare case where the secrets of a nearly invisible creature could ripple upward, shaping the survival of humans far beyond Earth. During dormancy, their cells enter a glass-like vitrified state. When tardigrades dry out and curl into a ton, their cells undergo a remarkable transformation. Water inside them is replaced by protective molecules that lock structures in place. The effect is similar to glass formation, a vitrified state where proteins and membranes are immobilized, frozen in time without ice. This glassy preservation keeps vital molecules from collapsing or tangling while the animal waits. In this suspended condition, years can pass without harm. When water returns, the glass melts back into fluid life, and the tardigrade resumes activity. Vitrification is unusual in biology because most organisms cannot survive being immobilized so completely. For tardigrades, it is their greatest trick, to pause existence itself. To picture a living creature turned into something like glass, yet still capable of waking again, is to witness the edge of what we mean when we call something alive. DNA is packed tightly to reduce radiation damage. Another secret to tardigrade resilience lies in how their DNA is organized. In stressful conditions, their genetic material becomes tightly packed. bundled in ways that make it less vulnerable to radiation and chemical attack. This compact arrangement reduces the chance of breaks and helps repair enzymes find and fix damage quickly. Imagine rolling up a fragile scroll and placing it safely in a case rather than leaving it spread on the table. Tardigrades seem to follow the same logic, tucking away their instructions for life until danger passes. This packing is not permanent. Once conditions improve, DNA relaxes, allowing normal activity to resume. But in the meantime, the genome becomes a shielded archive, protected against the invisible forces that would otherwise tear it apart. For an organism so small, such careful organization shows a level of precision that feels almost architectural. Their genomes contain genes found nowhere else. When scientists sequenced tardigrade genomes, they found something extraordinary: genes that exist in no other known organisms. These unique genes encode proteins unlike anything else in biology, tools sculpted specifically for their extreme lifestyle. Some help stabilize cells during dehydration, others guard against radiation, and still others remain mysterious in function. The presence of such novel genes reminds us that evolution is not limited to recycling old parts. Sometimes it invents entirely new solutions. For tardigrades, these innovations define their resilience. For researchers, they are gold mines of discovery, offering molecular secrets we have only begun to explore. Each unique gene tells a story of adaptation written over hundreds of millions of years. Hidden inside the smallest of animals lies an entire library of strategies that no other creature has tried, a testament to evolution's creativity in the face of adversity. They switch off most metabolic processes in a ton. When a tardigrade enters a ton, it does more than shrink and dry out. It powers down. Nearly every metabolic process, from digestion to growth, comes to a halt. Energy consumption drops to almost nothing, and measurable activity can become undetectable. This suspended state is so profound that scientists sometimes describe it as reversible death. It is not sleep, not hibernation, but something deeper, a true pause in life's machinery. Yet, despite this silence, the organism remains viable, capable of reanimation when conditions improve. For us, it feels like magic, a creature halting time within itself, preserving life in stasis. For tardigrades, it is a simple survival tool, as natural as breathing is for us. By switching off nearly everything, they sidestep the damage that constant metabolism would bring during stress, waiting patiently for the world to grow kind again. Some species stockpile trehalose to stabilize cell structures. Trehalose, a simple sugar, is a powerful protector in biology. Certain tardigrades produce large amounts of it when drying out, coating their cells in a stabilizing layer. Trehalose acts like a molecular cushion, replacing water and preventing membranes from collapsing or proteins from tangling. This sugary shield allows the organism to survive desiccation without losing structural integrity. Other creatures, like brine shrimp and resurrection plants, use trehalose too, but tardigrades take the strategy to a higher level. When revived with water, the sugar dissolves harmlessly, and life resumes. For scientists, trehalose offers clues to preserving cells, tissues, and even medicines without refrigeration. For the water bear, it is simply one more tool in a vast survival kit, a sweet secret that helps them cheat death by turning dryness into a temporary inconvenience rather than a final end. In others, sugars act as natural antifreeze during stress. Not all tardigrades rely on trehalose, but many use other sugars to survive extremes. These molecules lower the freezing point of cellular fluids, acting as natural antifreeze. By doing so, they prevent lethal ice crystals from forming inside cells. even when temperatures plunge far below zero. The sugars also stabilize proteins and membranes, keeping them intact during stress. This strategy mirrors tricks used by cold-adapted fish and insects, but in tardigrades, it combines with their ton state to make them virtually freeze-proof. For researchers, this highlights how diverse survival can be, even within one group of animals. Some tardigrades lean on trehalose, others on different sugars, and still others on unique proteins. Evolution has given them multiple overlapping strategies, ensuring that if one fails, another succeeds. In the silent cold, sugars become shields, tiny molecules guarding life against the destructive power of ice. Their chromosome numbers vary widely between species. One of the curiosities of tardigrade genetics is the variation in chromosome numbers across species. Some carry as few as 6, while others have more than 20. This diversity is unusual for such a small group of animals and suggests a complex evolutionary history. Chromosome number affects how genes are packaged and inherited, so these differences may influence how each species adapts to its environment. The scientists studying this variability offers clues about the flexibility of tardigrade genomes, how they evolve, shuffle, and maintain their survival toolkit. It is striking to realize that even within such tiny creatures, genetic organization can vary dramatically. The variation reminds us that resilience is not a single design, but a spectrum of solutions. Each species carries its own genetic arrangement, its own version of the water bear blueprint, fine-tuned for life's challenges. In good conditions, they reproduce multiple times across a short life. When water is plentiful and food is abundant, tardigrades don't waste time. They reproduce multiple times during their brief lives, laying clusters of eggs either in the environment or within the protection of a shed cuticle. This frequent reproduction ensures that even in unstable habitats, populations remain steady. Each clutch may hold a handful of eggs, but in the microscopic world, even a few offspring are enough to sustain generations. Their strategy is not to live long, but to make the most of favorable windows. Moss patches, wet soil, and lichen cushions become nurseries, filled with tiny eggs waiting to hatch into fully formed young. For an organism so small, reproduction is a race against time, ensuring that before the next drought, freeze, or flood arrives, new tardigrades are already prepared to endure. Their resilience is not just individual, but generational. Some species complete their entire life cycle in weeks, while certain tardigrades have been recorded surviving for decades in suspended animation. Others complete their entire life cycle in just a few weeks. From egg to hatchling to adult, they can grow, reproduce, and pass away in a single season. This rapid turnover reflects the precarious nature of their habitats. In puddles that dry quickly or moss patches that shift with the weather, time is short. By living fast, tardigrades ensure that at least some offspring are produced before the habitat disappears. The contrast between species that can endure decades in dormancy and those that rush through life in weeks shows the incredible flexibility of their biology. It also reminds us that survival doesn't always mean longevity. For tardigrades, sometimes endurance means lasting through ages, and sometimes it means seizing the moment with astonishing speed. Both paths lead to success. Rehydrated tons can reanimate within hours. The revival of a desiccated tardigrade can feel like watching resurrection. After years curled into a ton, all it takes is a drop of water. Within hours, the body swells, legs extend, and the creature begins moving again. What once looked like a speck of dust transforms into a living animal. This rapid return to activity amazes scientists because even after extended dormancy, the transition back to life is seamless. There is no long recovery, no fumbling adjustment, the tardigrade simply resumes where it left off. For us, it is almost uncanny, as if time itself paused for the animal and restarted with the touch of moisture. It shows that their survival strategy is not only about endurance, but also about readiness. At any moment when the opportunity arises, the tardigrade is prepared to awaken and continue its quiet existence. Individuals can enter and exit dormancy repeatedly. Dormancy for tardigrades is not a one-time trick. Many individuals can cycle through the process multiple times, drying into a ton when conditions worsen and reviving again when they improve. This repeatability is astonishing because each transformation subjects their cells to extreme stress. Yet their protective proteins and repair systems restore them again and again. This ability means that a single tardigrade can outlast not just one drought or freeze, but many cycles of hardship. It is as if they carry an endless ticket to survival, pressing pause whenever needed. For habitats that fluctuate often, like mosses drying in sunlight and rehydrating with rain, this flexibility is invaluable. The water bear's life becomes a rhythm of stillness and awakening, perfectly tuned to the unpredictability of its environment. Few organisms show such mastery over time itself. A few documented individuals have lived for over 3 decades. Although many tardigrades live only weeks or months in active states, there are extraordinary records of individuals surviving for decades, largely thanks to dormancy. In laboratory studies, rehydrated specimens have awakened after more than 30 years in suspended animation. This kind of longevity is astonishing for a creature so small. It means that a tardigrade could experience entire human generations, bridging decades while remaining unchanged. For scientists, such cases highlight the power of cryptobiosis, showing how suspension can preserve life far longer than natural activity would allow. For the tardigrade, it is simply another strategy. When the world grows harsh, it retreats, waiting patiently until conditions are kind again. The possibility that some are older than many of us walking the earth is a humbling reminder of how life bends time to its will. They show measurable signs of aging. Even creatures as resilient as tardigrades cannot escape the passage of time entirely. Studies have shown that, like larger animals, they display signs of aging. Their movement slows, their ability to reproduce declines, and their survival rates decrease as the years pass. While dormancy allows them to pause life, active periods still take their toll. Watching them under a microscope, it is possible to see the difference between the vigor of a young individual and the slower, weaker movements of an elder. This aging process reminds us that resilience is not invincibility. Tardigrades can outlast disasters, extremes, and deep freezes, but they remain part of the natural cycle of birth, growth, and decline. Their story is not of immortality, but of persistence. They live as long as their biology allows, showing that even the toughest survivors eventually bow to time. Even tardigrades ultimately die of old age. For all their superpowers, tardigrades are not eternal. Individuals, no matter how many hardships they endure, eventually die. Their bodies slow, their movements cease, and they become still. In nature, their remains are consumed by other microorganisms, recycled into the ecosystems they once explored. This mortality is part of what makes their survival feats so striking. They endure environments that obliterate most forms of life, yet they remain bound by life's universal end. Their survival strategies are not escapes from death, but delays, pauses that allow them to outlast disasters. In this way, they mirror us, finite beings striving to stretch time, to survive as long as possible. Their story is a humbling one, reminding us that even the most astonishing resilience does not equal immortality. Life, no matter how tough, is still life. Protozoans and nematodes commonly prey on them. Despite their toughness, tardigrades are not invincible. In the microscopic world, they are prey as well as survivors. Protozoans, single-celled predators, can engulf young tardigrades. Nematodes, tiny worms that share the same habitats, can pierce or swallow them whole. For these predators, a tardigrade is simply food, another part of the ecosystem's balance. Watching a nematode capture a tardigrade under the microscope can be surprising, because it shows that even legendary survivors have vulnerabilities. Yet this predation is essential to keeping populations balanced, preventing any one species from overrunning its microhabitat. Tardigrades endure cosmic rays and freezing vacuums, but on a patch of moss, they face more ordinary struggles, avoiding hungry neighbors. It's a reminder that survival is always relative. Against the cosmos, they seem indestructible. Against a worm or protozoan, they are fragile morsels. Tiny beetle larvae are also known predators. On land, among mosses and lichens, tardigrades sometimes face danger from beetle larvae. These tiny predators prowl the same habitats, hunting with jaws that can pierce the tardigrade's soft cuticle. The encounter is quick. The larva seizes, bites, and consumes its prey. For the water bear, no amount of cryptobiosis or DNA repair offers protection once caught. This vulnerability adds perspective. They are extraordinary survivors, but they are not immune to the everyday threats of their scale. Predators remind us that even the toughest organisms exist within food webs, playing roles both as marvels and as meals. Watching a beetle larva feed on a tardigrade under magnification is sobering, a contrast to their spacefaring legend. It anchors their story in ecology. No creature, however resilient, escapes the simple truth of predator and prey. Certain fungi can infect and kill them. Another surprising threat to tardigrades comes from fungi. Some species release spores that attach to the water bear's cuticle, germinating into filaments that penetrate and consume the host. Slowly, the fungus overtakes the animal, using its body as nourishment. Even tardigrades, armored with resilience against radiation and freezing, can be undone by microscopic fungi exploiting their vulnerabilities. For ecologists, these infections are reminders that balance exists at every scale. Even the hardiest survivors have natural checks on their populations. The image of a tardigrade overtaken by fungal threads is a stark one, contrasting with their usual portrayal as indestructible. Yet it is also part of their reality, grounding them within ecosystems where no species is beyond risk. Their story is not one of invulnerability, but of adaptation, thriving despite constant threats, both cosmic and microbial. Many species pierce algae cells with needle-like mouthparts. If you peer closely at a tardigrade's face under a microscope, you'll notice a pair of fine, sharp stylets, tiny, needle-like structures tucked just inside its mouth. These are not teeth in the mammalian sense, but specialized tools evolved to puncture the cell walls of algae. Once a hole is made, the tardigrade uses a muscular throat pump to draw out the rich, nutrient-filled sap inside. It's as if the little creature carries a pair of built-in straws to sip from the microscopic greenery around it. This feeding strategy makes sense when you consider their mossy habitats. Algae are abundant, soft enough to pierce, and provide sugars and proteins to sustain life. It's a surprisingly precise method for such a tiny animal, reminding us that survival in the microscopic world often depends on small but highly effective adaptations. They regrow their piercing stylets after each molt. Tardigrades, like their arthropod cousins, must shed their outer layer as they grow. This molting process isn't just about slipping out of an old skin. It also involves replacing their feeding tools. The sharp stylets they use to pierce plant or algal cells are part of their mouth lining and with each molt, they shed and rebuild them. This means a water bear essentially receives a brand new set of mouthparts multiple times during its short life. It's a bit like having your teeth fall out and regrow every few weeks, always sharp and ready for use. For the tardigrade, this constant renewal ensures that its feeding remains efficient despite the wear and tear of scraping through tough cell walls. It's a quiet example of how nature designs life at small scales, a cycle of breakdown and renewal that never seems to end. Plant eaters graze on mosses and lichens. In their most familiar habitats, tardigrades live among moss and lichen, which form tiny forests of green at a microscopic scale. Many species are herbivorous, piercing the cells of these plants and drawing out the nutritious fluids. To a water bear, each moss leaf is like a sprawling meadow, and feeding is less a violent act than a slow grazing. This diet ties them intimately to damp, shaded environments where mosses thrive, from the bark of trees to stone walls and forest floors. By consuming plant matter in such tiny bites, they help recycle nutrients within their miniature ecosystems. In this way, tardigrades play an unseen role in maintaining the balance of soil and moss habitats. For us, it is humbling to realize that even the smallest grazers contribute to the health of the world we walk on every day. Others prefer bacterial biofilms. Not all tardigrades are plant eaters. Some species specialize in grazing on bacterial biofilms, those slippery, shiny layers of microbial colonies that grow on submerged surfaces. These films coat everything from pond rocks to damp soil particles, forming a rich, gooey feast for a water bear. With their piercing stylets and suction pump throats, tardigrades can sip up bacteria as easily as a person drinks soup. By doing so, they help regulate microbial communities, preventing any one species from overwhelming the tiny ecosystem. For scientists, tardigrades provide a window into the complex food webs that exist even in the smallest habitats. To us, it is a reminder that every surface, every drop of water, may contain bustling, balanced societies of life, with the slow-stepping tardigrade as both grazer and gardener of the unseen microbial world. Several species are carnivorous hunters. Though many water bears feed on plants and algae, some have taken a darker path. They are hunters. These carnivorous species stalk even smaller invertebrates, such as rotifers or nematodes, and pierce them with their sharp stylets. Once punctured, the victim's insides are sucked out like liquid from a straw. Watching this under a microscope can be startling, the chubby, bear-like body suddenly revealing itself as a patient predator. This duality makes tardigrades even more fascinating. They are both delicate survivors and efficient hunters. In their tiny ecosystems, they play roles that mirror those of lions or wolves in ours, maintaining balance by preying on other organisms. Their hunting reminds us that survival is not always passive endurance. Sometimes it requires action, precision, and a willingness to take advantage of opportunities when they appear, even in the smallest drops of water. Some will prey on smaller tardigrades. As if feeding on algae and bacteria weren't enough, certain tardigrade species will even prey on their own kind. Larger individuals can pierce smaller tardigrades with their needle-like mouthparts, extracting the fluids inside. This cannibalistic behavior might seem surprising for such tiny creatures, but in the microscopic world, resources are scarce. When food is limited, survival often comes down to opportunism. Eating a neighbor can provide a sudden burst of nutrition that allows one tardigrade to endure until conditions improve. While unsettling from our perspective, this strategy is simply another adaptation to life in unpredictable environments. In a mossy droplet or damp soil grain where competition is fierce, even the friendliest-looking moss piglet may turn predator. Their cannibalism highlights a truth of nature. Resilience often requires hard choices, and survival can blur the lines between companionship and prey. A muscular pharyngeal bulb pumps food like a syringe. At the center of a tardigrade's feeding system lies a remarkable structure, the pharyngeal bulb. This tiny muscular chamber acts like a syringe pump. After the water bear pierces a cell with its stylets, the bulb contracts rhythmically, sucking up the cell's liquid contents. Under a microscope, you can watch the bulb pulsing as the animal drinks, filling its transparent body with green or golden fluid from algae. The process is mesmerizing, a miniature pumping engine, keeping life going in a world invisible to the naked eye. For scientists, the pharyngeal bulb is a fascinating example of how even the simplest animals have evolved specialized structures for survival. For the tardigrade, it is a vital organ, a tiny pump that allows it to feed on resources hidden inside protective walls, ensuring nourishment in environments where food is scarce and competition is fierce. You can watch their guts fill in real time under a microscope. One of the joys of studying tardigrades is that they are transparent. Their bodies act like living windows, allowing us to watch biology in motion. When a tardigrade pierces an algal cell and begins to feed, the contents flow directly into its gut. Under the glow of a microscope, you can see the colors change as the meal spreads through its body. Green if it has eaten algae, yellow or brown if it has fed on detritus. The sight is both scientific and strangely calming, a tiny animal quietly nourishing itself in its mossy world, with every sip visible. This transparency makes tardigrades uniquely accessible to study, because their inner workings are laid bare without invasive procedures. For curious minds, it's like watching life in its simplest, most delicate form, a reminder that beauty often hides in the smallest places. In a ton, they stop feeding entirely for years. When tardigrades retreat into their ton state, one of the first functions to cease is feeding. Their mouths close, their digestive systems shut down, and their bodies shrink into a state of suspended stillness. In this form, they no longer need nutrients, because their metabolism is nearly zero. What is remarkable is how long they can endure this silence. Months, years, even decades, and yet return to life when water returns. Most organisms would quickly starve, their systems collapsing without a steady influx of food. Tardigrades simply bypass the problem, halting their need altogether. For scientists, this raises fascinating questions about what life truly means. If an animal is neither eating, nor growing, nor reproducing, is it alive, or is it paused? For us, it is a reminder that patience itself can be a survival tool, a way of outlasting even time. Some species can detect and choose preferred food sources. Tardigrades may be small, but they are not indiscriminate feeders. Studies show that some species can detect different food sources and choose among them. They may prefer certain types of algae, or select particular bacterial colonies over others. This choice suggests a level of sensory discrimination beyond mere survival reflexes. For a creature less than a millimeter long, deciding between food types shows an unexpected complexity in behavior. It also demonstrates how even the smallest organisms are active participants in shaping their environments, influencing which microbial species thrive and which do not. Watching a tardigrade pause, wave its tiny legs, and then choose a particular cell to pierce is like witnessing a decision made in miniature. It's a gentle reminder that life, no matter how small, is full of preferences, strategies, and subtle acts of choice that guide survival in hidden worlds. Researchers use them to probe the limits of life. For scientists, tardigrades are more than curiosities. They are test subjects for defining life's outer boundaries. By placing them in extreme heat, cold, radiation, or vacuum, researchers ask, How far can life be pushed before it fails? Every time tardigrades survive, the limits stretch wider. These experiments aren't cruel curiosity, they help refine our understanding of habitability. If a water bear can survive on a mountain peak, at the bottom of the sea, or even in orbit, then the zones we once labeled unlivable are worth rethinking. In this way, tardigrades become ambassadors of possibility, showing us that biology is tougher and more adaptable than we imagined. The lessons they teach ripple outward into medicine, space exploration, and philosophy. With every experiment, they remind us that the concept of limits is more flexible than we once believed. Their molecules inspire ways to preserve vaccines without cold chains. One of the most practical applications of tardigrade biology lies in their ability to endure desiccation. By replacing water with protective proteins and sugars, they preserve their cells without refrigeration. Scientists are studying these molecules to develop new ways to stabilize vaccines and medicines. If vaccines could be stored without constant cold chains, distribution to remote or resource-limited regions would become vastly easier. Tardigrades, in their microscopic silence, offer clues to solving a very human challenge: keeping life-saving treatments viable without fragile infrastructure. The idea that a tiny moss dweller might help prevent disease outbreaks on a global scale is humbling. It connects the resilience of an unseen creature to the well-being of millions. Once again, the tardigrade shows that survival strategies honed in nature can ripple outward, shaping technologies that protect not only themselves, but also us. Electronics engineers study their proteins for space hardening. Radiation in space is one of the biggest threats to satellites, spacecraft, and astronauts. It can fry electronics, scramble data, and damage living cells. Tardigrades have evolved remarkable proteins, like DCOP, that protect their DNA from such damage. Engineers are now exploring whether similar proteins could be applied to electronic systems, creating bio-inspired shields that protect microchips the way tardigrade proteins protect chromosomes. While this research is still early, it highlights the surprising crossovers between biology and technology. If lessons from a microscopic animal can help spacecraft survive radiation storms, the connection between mossy rooftops and orbiting satellites becomes strikingly real. Tardigrades, without knowing it, may one day help keep human-made machines safe in the same environments they themselves can endure. The idea that a water bear's biology could inspire sturdier electronics is another reminder of their unexpected relevance far beyond their scale. Human hibernation research looks to their dormancy tricks. The dream of long-duration spaceflight often runs into a simple problem: keeping astronauts alive for months or years in confined, resource-limited environments. One proposed solution is human hibernation, slowing metabolism to reduce needs. Tardigrades already do this naturally. Their ton state shuts down nearly every process, conserving energy until conditions improve. Scientists studying hibernation and stasis often look to water bears for inspiration. If their tricks could be adapted, even in part, humans might one day enter controlled, suspended states during long voyages. While we are far from such applications, tardigrades serve as proof that deep dormancy is possible, not just fantasy. Watching a creature awaken after years of silence offers a glimpse of what hibernation might mean for us. The path from moss cushions to interstellar journeys may run, improbably, through the biology of the water bear. Their DNA-shielding protein has been expressed in human cells. In laboratory studies, scientists have taken the tardigrade's DNA-shielding protein, DCOP, and inserted it into human cell cultures. Remarkably, those cells showed reduced DNA damage when exposed to radiation compared to unaltered ones. This was the first clear demonstration that tardigrade resilience can transfer across species, at least in a controlled setting. While the leap from cultured cells to full human protection is enormous, the experiment highlights the potential of cross-species biotechnology. Tardigrades evolved their shield for survival in mossy microhabitats, yet the same molecule may one day help protect astronauts from cosmic rays or patients undergoing medical treatments. For now, the finding stands as a reminder. The survival secrets of even the tiniest creatures can hold enormous potential. The water bear's shield, born in obscurity, may one day echo in the tools we design to safeguard ourselves. Insights from them may inform radiation therapies. Cancer patients often undergo radiation therapy, which damages not only tumors but also surrounding healthy tissue. Tardigrades, with their uncanny ability to resist and repair radiation damage, offer models for minimizing these side effects. By studying their DNA repair pathways and protective proteins, scientists hope to uncover strategies for shielding human cells during treatment. This could make therapies safer and more effective, improving recovery outcomes. The connection is poignant. A creature that survives cosmic storms and laboratory extremes may also help us heal from diseases inside our own bodies. The tardigrade's biology is not just an oddity, but a source of potential medicine. In their survival, there is wisdom, a natural resilience that, if understood, might help us harness life's ingenuity against one of our most challenging illnesses. Bioengineers study them for long-duration spaceflight survival. Tardigrades are already travelers of the cosmos in miniature, but bioengineers envision their biology informing human exploration. Their proteins, dormancy tricks, and DNA repair systems provide a toolkit for surviving space hazards, radiation, vacuum, and long stretches without resources. By studying these mechanisms, engineers design concepts for shielding astronauts, preserving cells, or even inducing partial stasis on long voyages. The leap from moss dwellers to Mars missions may seem wide, but in resilience, tardigrades are unparalleled teachers. Each experiment brings us closer to imagining spacecraft where human biology is fortified by lessons borrowed from water bears. It is poetic to think that while we dream of reaching the stars, the creatures best prepared for the journey have already demonstrated how survival might work. They remind us that exploration begins not only with rockets, but also with biology. They challenge our definitions of what alive can mean. When tardigrades dry into tons, their metabolism nearly ceases. They neither eat, grow, nor reproduce. For years at a time, they may show no measurable signs of life. Yet, with water, they awaken, moving as though time never passed. This challenges our very definitions of life. Are they alive during dormancy, or something in between? Philosophers and biologists debate where to draw the line. Tardigrades exist in a gray zone, testing the boundaries of what we mean by vitality. Their existence complicates neat categories, showing that life is more flexible than textbooks suggest. For us, it is a reminder that the universe may hold organisms whose rhythms of existence are unfamiliar, who live not in continuous motion, but in cycles of stillness and renewal. The tardigrade forces us to expand our imagination about what it means to live. In a ton, body water can drop below 3%. In their desiccated ton state, tardigrades lose nearly all their internal water. Measurements show that levels can fall to below 3% of their normal body content. At this threshold, most organisms would collapse irreversibly. Water is usually considered essential, the medium of life's chemistry. Without it, proteins fold incorrectly, membranes fall apart, and DNA breaks. Yet water bears sidestep this destruction by replacing liquid with stabilizing molecules that lock everything in place. Their tissues become like glass, rigid, preserved, and resistant to decay. This extreme dehydration is one of the keys to their long-term dormancy. For scientists, the numbers are almost unbelievable, an animal that can survive with less water than nearly any other. For the tardigrade, it is simply another adaptation, a silent mastery over the very element most life cannot do without. Ton metabolism can fall to almost undetectable levels. In the ton state, a tardigrade's metabolism doesn't just slow, it plummets to nearly nothing. Studies show activity dropping to less than 1/10,000th of normal levels. At this point, life functions are so reduced they are almost undetectable, creating the illusion of death. Yet the animal is not gone. It waits, poised on the razor's edge between existence and non-existence, ready to return when water flows again. This suspended metabolism is the essence of cryptobiosis, and it fascinates scientists who dream of applying similar strategies to human cells, organs, or even whole bodies. Imagine the ability to press pause, to endure without fuel until the right conditions arrive. For the tardigrade, this is no dream, but daily reality. In its stillness, it demonstrates one of life's most radical possibilities, surviving by nearly ceasing to live at all. They were first described in 1773 by Johann August Ephraim Goes. The story of tardigrades in science begins in the 18th century, when German zoologist Johann August Ephraim Goes peered through a microscope and discovered a creature unlike any he had seen before. In 1773, he described these tiny, lumbering beings and gave them their first place in scientific literature. Goes recognized their peculiar, bear-like walk and their strange, segmented bodies, though he could not have imagined the secrets we know today. At the time, microscopes opened hidden worlds to naturalists, and the tardigrade became a shining example of how much remained invisible in everyday life. From that first description, they entered the human imagination, beginning a journey from obscure observation to scientific icon. The fact that such an unassuming animal has captured centuries of curiosity shows how wonder grows not only from size and grandeur, but also from resilience in the smallest of forms. The name tardigrade means slow stepper. In 1777, the Italian biologist Lazzaro Spallanzani gave these animals their formal name, tardigrade, meaning slow stepper. The name captures their endearing gait as they lift each stubby leg carefully and deliberately, moving at a pace that seems almost meditative. Watching one under a microscope, you can see the truth of Spallanzani's choice. These creatures are not quick darting swimmers or frantic crawlers. They are patient walkers, wandering steadily across their microscopic landscapes. The name also reflects a kind of poetry, as if their very pace reveals their character. They have no rush, no haste, only resilience. To call them slow steppers is to acknowledge both their movement and their philosophy of survival. Take life one careful step at a time and endure whatever comes. The term reflects their lumbering, careful gait. The slow stepper name fits perfectly once you've watched them move. Tardigrades walk with a gentle rocking motion, lifting and planting each leg as though testing the ground. Their steps are not hurried, but deliberate, as if every motion carries weight despite their minuscule size. This lumbering gait is part of what makes them so charming. They look less like alien microorganisms and more like tiny animals marching across a mossy forest floor. Scientists studying their movement note similarities to insect locomotion, scaled down to near invisibility. The gait has become an iconic part of their identity, cementing their place as water bears. In a world of frenetic microbes darting about, the tardigrade strolls instead, its calm rhythm echoing across the centuries since Spallanzani first named them. It's fitting that an animal famous for endurance also moves with such unhurried grace. More than 1,300 species have been identified. Though we often speak of the tardigrade as a single creature, the reality is far richer. Scientists have identified over 1,300 distinct species so far, with new ones continuing to emerge as microscopes and genetic tools advance. Each species has its own traits, differences in size, claw shape, egg ornamentation, and habitat. Some thrive in icy soils, others in tropical moss, still others in the deep sea. This diversity shows that water bears are not a single marvel, but an entire phylum, a vast branch of the tree of life filled with variation. To think that 1,000 kinds of these tiny animals creep quietly across the planet is astonishing. It also means that their story is still unfolding, as every new species adds another piece to the puzzle of how resilience evolves in countless subtle forms. New species are still being discovered regularly. Despite their fame, tardigrades remain understudied. Each year, researchers describe new species collected from moss patches, soils, forests, and extreme environments around the world. Some discoveries come from remote regions, while others appear in urban settings, even from moss on sidewalks. The constant trickle of new finds reminds us that our planet still holds secrets at every scale, including the microscopic. Every new tardigrade species enriches our understanding of biodiversity and adaptation. It also proves that even in the 21st century, naturalists can make fundamental discoveries simply by looking closely at the world around them. In the end, water bears show us that exploration is not confined to distant galaxies or deep oceans. Sometimes, entire new species are waiting just outside our windows, walking unseen across the mossy surfaces we pass without a thought. Some species are named after Star Trek characters. The cultural fascination with tardigrades has spilled over into taxonomy. Scientists, with a touch of humor and admiration, have named some species after Star Trek characters. For instance, Ramazzotti star Trekiensis honors the franchise that imagined countless strange new worlds where creatures like tardigrades might plausibly thrive. This playful naming reflects how water bears bridge science and imagination. Their survival in space experiments makes the Star Trek connection especially fitting. To many, they already seem like real-life aliens, so tying them to pop culture feels natural. Such names show that even in the rigorous world of taxonomy, scientists allow wonder and storytelling to guide their choices. In this way, tardigrades remind us that science is not just about cold facts, but also about joy, creativity, and the celebration of life's quirks. Others honor scientists who first collected them. Not every tardigrade bears a whimsical name. Many species honor the scientists who discovered or studied them. These names immortalize naturalists who, through patient microscopy and fieldwork, revealed new forms of life. For instance, species names might reflect a researcher's surname or the location where they were first found. In this way, the water bear lineage doubles as a living archive of scientific history. Each new discovery carries with it not just biological information, but a tribute to human curiosity and dedication. It's humbling to think that the names of long-forgotten scientists live on, attached forever to resilient creatures that may outlast us all. The tradition reflects the quiet partnership between human effort and nature's diversity, ensuring that the work of exploration is never truly lost, but embedded in the taxonomy of life itself. They have become cultural icons of resilience. Over time, tardigrades have left the pages of scientific journals and entered the broader culture. They are celebrated as mascots of resilience, symbols of survival against impossible odds. Their image appears in news articles, documentaries, and classrooms, often framed as the ultimate survivor. People resonate with their story. The idea of a creature so tiny and fragile, yet able to outlast cataclysms. They have become metaphors for persistence in difficult times, appearing in speeches, art, and even tattoos. Their journey from obscure moss dwellers to cultural icons shows how science can inspire beyond the laboratory. In a world often uncertain, the water bear stands as a reminder. Endurance is possible, even when the odds seem overwhelming. It is no wonder that they have captured imaginations across science and society alike. They appear in cartoons, toys, and internet memes. Tardigrades have leapt from microscopes into pop culture, appearing in cartoons, plush toys, and countless internet memes. Their odd mix of cuteness and toughness makes them perfect subjects for playful reinterpretation. Some depictions emphasize their chubby, bear-like shape, while others exaggerate their claws or portray them as tiny superheroes. Plush toys let children hug representations of an animal most will never see with their eyes, while memes spread their legend as indestructible moss piglets. This blend of whimsy and science has helped popularize them far beyond classrooms. They are proof that curiosity and humor can combine, transforming obscure creatures into household names. In a way, their spread through pop culture mirrors their spread across Earth's ecosystems, quiet, steady, and unstoppable, until suddenly they are everywhere, creeping into awareness in the most unexpected of ways. To scientists, they symbolize life's astonishing persistence. For all their fame, tardigrades remain, at heart, symbols of persistence. To scientists, they represent the astonishing adaptability of life, its refusal to be extinguished, even under crushing pressures, searing heat, or the vacuum of space. They remind us that survival is not limited to strength or size, but often to patience, resilience, and clever biological tricks. Each study of tardigrades expands our sense of possibility, showing how life writes solutions to challenges that seem insurmountable. They stand as emblems for astrobiology, medicine, and philosophy alike, suggesting that if such persistence exists here, it may exist elsewhere too. In the quiet crawl of a tardigrade across a moss leaf, scientists see a story written in deep time, that life endures, adapts, and persists against odds that should have erased it. In their tiny steps lies a profound lesson about the stubbornness of existence itself. And so our quiet journey through the hidden lives of tardigrades comes to an end. We've wandered with them across mossy forests, drifted beside them in raindrops, and followed them into the deepest seas and the coldest ice. We've watched them curl into tons, endure the vacuum of space, and even cross decades of stillness before waking once more. For all their toughness, these water bears remain small, gentle wanderers. They are not conquerors of worlds, but quiet survivors, carrying on their slow walk through places we often overlook. Their story is one of patience, endurance, and resilience, qualities that echo within us, especially in times when life feels overwhelming. As you rest tonight, you might imagine a tardigrade drifting peacefully in a drop of dew, unbothered by the storms of the larger world. Step by step, breath by breath, life continues. And just as the water bear waits out the harshest winters and darkest nights, so too can we find stillness and let time carry us gently forward. Thank you for joining me tonight on the Sleepy Science Channel, where we explore the wonders of the universe in a way that helps you relax and drift into dreams. If you enjoyed tonight's journey, I invite you to subscribe so you'll always have a quiet corner of science to return to. For now, let your mind settle like a tardigrade in its ton, safe, protected, and at peace. Close your eyes, let the weight of the day fall away, and drift into calm, restful sleep. Good night.